Okay, a short one leading into texturing the body, or when we come to do anything in future, which we have a setup like this. Now, when it comes to our pardon me, when it comes to our likeness sculptures, likeness subjects, we probably don't need to do this. But when we're doing our full body sculpture, full body subject, or when we're doing anything in the future where we've got something like this, so we've got a full body, one connected form, with two UV sets here. So what I don't want to do, and I think I said this in the video when I was retopologizing the body, is I don't want to try and cram everything into the same UV, because especially if we're trying to go for really, really nice textures, really nice fidelity, portfolio piece stuff, because that's going to condense everything down to a very, very small texture. And that means you're going to have to start using massive texture sizes like 4K and 8K to try and get anything that's remotely good. So what we do, and you'll see this very, very commonly, is you'll split stuff up into UDIMs. And this is for the purpose of texturing. So we've got a head here, our main head, and this is in UDIM 1. So this is called a UDIM. And UDIMs, we've been seeing all through last year and all through this year. It's these little areas here. So this is a UDIM, this is a UDIM, this is a UDIM, this is a UDIM. So we've got one head in one UDIM there. And then we've got the rest of the body in the UDIM here. Like I also said in the other video, there's a bit of like weird wiggly math in this, where because I've only got one piece inside this UV, and the size of that UV is the size of that piece is here is, you know, this size. It's obviously not as big as my body, so I'm cramming all my body into one UV sheet here, and then just leaving my head in this UV sheet here. This is going to allow me to add a little bit more texture to a surface, because it's allowing the texture sizes to be or the UV sizes to be bigger. The problem is, if we were to apply a different material to, say, the head and a different material to, say, the body, and then do it like we used to, where we had all the UV stacked on top of each other, and it's the material separation which separates them inside of a substance, what will happen is I'm not able to actually texture across seams like the neck, because this is one UV, or this is inside substance paint, and this is one texture set, and this is another texture set, and that presents a problem, because then we can't texture across them, and it's an absolute pain. So what we do is we set up multiple UDIMs like this, and if you've seen my alien dude, I've got 3 of them. I've got one for the head, one for the arms, legs, and then one for the body. So it's a really, really simple setup. So all I'm going to do is literally just export this as per usual. Export this as an FBX. There you go. So I've exported that as an FBX, and inside Substance Painter, so I was looking at an old project, so I'll get rid of Ted. So yeah, so in a new project there, we set whatever our material is. We choose we find our piece, so it is retouch body, there we go. And what we do is when it comes down here to UV tile settings, UDIMs, cannot be changed later, so remember this. I'm going to click use UV tile workflow, and I'm going to preserve UV tile layout per material and enable painting across tiles. That's what I'm going to have selected. Everything else I'm all good. So I'll bring that in. There we go. So as you can see here, the UV area here kind of changes. Normally it's just like a grey space with just our UV. Now we've got something that's similar to Maya. We've got the different UDIM grids. We've got the X and the U and V coordinates. And then we've got our 2 textures here, our 2 UVs. And in the actual texture sets on the right hand side here, you see that they look a little bit different as well. So under Lambert, where we'd normally have just whatever, you know, we've got that. But then underneath it, we've got UV tiles 2. And this is telling me I've got 2 UV tiles. And the coordinates of these, if you just understand very, very, very simple maths, is anything along this axis going left to right, that's 1. If we move up another UDIM axis, up here, this will be 2. And then 3 and then 4. So this is U. This is, this is 1. And then we've got a number at the end. So 1, 0, 0, 1. It means it's the first tile of the first UDIM. 1002 means it's the second tile of the first UDIM set, of the first UDIM row. And that's all that means. Now this does come into play when we come to do bakes, which I'll do in this video. But what this means is that we can texture across both textures, no problem. You can see the texture updates on both sides. So that's really, really nice. It does present a little bit of a problem that you'll have to get used to when it comes to applying kind of like noises across a surface. So if I come in here and apply some kind of noise, so I'll apply a fill, and I'll apply a, oh, done that the wrong thing, so I've got to add a black mask. Then I'll apply a fill to that mask. Then I'll apply like a Perlian free noise, kind of that. This is the problem that you might get up to, and you'll get this generally with UVing anyway. You might see seams in your stuff, and we shouldn't have that. That shouldn't be an issue, but it is because it's generally text. That's just generally materials. You know, it's nothing that we've done. That's because what we've got here at the very top of the properties is projection, and it's currently a UV projection. So what it's doing is it's not. Even though this is a 3D Perlian noise, so it should be in a big 3D cube, what's actually happening is this projection is being laid down flat on the UV view. And because of that, you know, we're just getting a general noise over the entire surface. None of the noise meets up. So what we've got to do is go through and change some of these projections. So what we can do is try triplanar projection. See how that looks. That looks okay, but as you can see, some of it looks a little bit wacky. So that's obviously not working. The best one to do for this is the very top one. Fill match per UV tile. There we go. And there we go. So now, if you're adding any noise over the entire UDIM set like this, you can go to projection at the very top and match fill match per tile. And that'll stop any seams appearing. Another problem that we don't have to worry about yet, we can just texture whatever, is when you come to do your exports and stuff. Yes, we should export everything at the same text size, but we can choose to change stuff later on. Because you might be exporting everything at, say, 4K or whatever, you know, you'll always have to. It's always best to save these out as the highest resolution. What you might get is the noise will be the same, the general information will be the same, but you might have a clarity difference where the head might be much cleaner, much more high res, and the body might be lower res, and that's because they're both the same texture sizes. This is 4K, this is 4K, and you'll have this issue across anything. If you do it all as 1K, you'll have the same issue. In fact, it's probably going to be even more noticeable at 1K because obviously you're even lower resolution. What's happening is, you know, you've got a bigger UV for your head, which is taking on more pixels, giving you more clarity. You've got smaller UVs in your body, giving you less pixels, giving you less clarity. That's fine when we're exporting, but we can later on we can export it, or we can change settings later on to allow us to be like, okay, this tile is going to be, if we're doing everything at say 2K, this tile is going to be 4K, and this tile is going to be 2K. So basically, this, because it's half the size, needs twice the pixels. I don't know why I'm quotation in that. Because this is effectively half the size, these UVs are effectively half the size. They need double the amount of pixels to get the clarity. Because this is the size it is, obviously we don't change anything of that. So that's a bit of like wiggly maths, like I said. Just because something is half the size, you don't do half the pixels, because technically that would be quarter the clarity. This is half the size, so you do double the amount of pixels. It's a relatively simple thing to get. When you first hear it, it's weird, but when you understand it, it's relatively simple to understand. It's just because this is half the size. So to get the same clarity as the head, you need twice the amount of pixels. Very, very cool. Like I said, there's a bit of an issue when it comes to baking stuff, and I'll show you that now. I'll pause the video, I'll do some bakes, and I'll come back to you. So here we have an example of something that's quite dense across multiple UDIMs. And this, by the way, isn't just characters. This is across anything that's big and needs UVing into one thing. Think about vehicles. Think about ornate set pieces for environments. Think about very, very intricate props, that kind of stuff. They all might need this kind of approach. So we've got multiple different UDIMs here. Now, there is one thing that I do want to kind of bring up, and it's going to be a bit hard to show if it doesn't happen. So what I'll do is I'll split the teeth and the tongue off. Into their own group. There you go. So you've done stuff like this, and then you're going to add something else in there. Let me just get rid of the eyes for this purpose. There you go. So you've got the main body there, and then you've also got some additional items that you're bringing in. Now, something might... Sorry, I had to pause it to kind of set this up. I can't actually make this happen. I can't make the issue happen. But what might happen when you're dealing with things that, you know, I've got my whole body here, and my tongue, my teeth, and my gums on as another kind of group that are on the inside of my mouth. There. What might happen is when you combine all this together, one of these things might disappear, or everything but one thing might disappear. Like I said, I can't actually make it happen because when I combine all this, they all stay behind because I've had to fix this issue already. But pay attention to when you're combining multiple things together to be one texture set or one selected group, because a load of your UVs might disappear, and it's a bit of an annoying issue. Again, this is across everything. Everything does this. It's just a thing. That's because things have different names. So really, really annoying. If I select my main body here and I come into my UV editor here and come to UV sets, I've got actually I might be able to make this kind of happen. There you go. So I've got in my UV sets here, I've got a name. This is called UV set 2. This group is called UV set 2. And then I've got this here, which is called UV set 1. Don't know why we're not seeing the name of these there, but this is UV set 1. And if these things have two different names, what might happen? No, it still doesn't happen. What might happen is if they've got two UV set names, is they might one might override the others, and basically get rid of all the other UVs and say, right, this is UV set 1. This is the only UVs I see. Like I said, it's a bit difficult to show because I can't remake the issue, which is really annoying. There we go. So I've got two UV sets here. I've got UV set 1, UV set. There you go. So nothing's in there. UV set. Okay. Yeah, I can't. Like I said, I can't remake the issue. Boil it down to, if you're combining multiple things together that are across multiple UDIMs that you've set up as different things, you know, it's the more complex you make the scene, or the more complex you make the object, this might happen. You combine everything together, but then the UVs disappear. What's happened is, because of all the UV set names are different, one of them takes priority, and basically the things that are in that UV set get left behind, and everything else gets taken away. The thing to fix that is just make sure you've got everything selected, and just make sure you rename everything under a texture set. Like I said, I have had to do this with this guy, and I can't remake it again. So that will then, once you combine it, there you go. Once you combine it, everything will stay behind. That's if this issue appears. If it doesn't appear, super good. We don't have to worry about it. If it does appear, every time you combine, just look at your UVs, check your UVs to make sure nothing disappears. If things do disappear, just Control-Z back to bring back all your UVs, and then just make sure that you've named everything under one texture set. As you can see, this is current UV texture set is UV set 2. If you select an object, you know, like Control-Z back to before you combined everything, obviously. If you select something and it says like UV set 1 or map 1, and then you select another thing and it says UV set 2 or map 2, something like that, just rename like the UV set 2 lot to map to UV set 1, whatever the other set is called, whatever name it gives it. Because then when you combine it, everything's good. And then you won't lose any of your UVs. So, let's take this guy into Substance, and we'll show you what this whole thing is setting up. So we've come through, we've added this in, we've chosen our default template, we've made sure that use UV tile workflow is selected. Click OK. And this is one of them checkpoints as well that you would then, you know, you load this up, you check your UVs. If everything's there and good and looking like this, you're all good. If it doesn't look like this, if you've just got everything under one big blank grey space, or there's only one UV set, go back and investigate. It's not going to be too hard. You've not broken anything. It's just things haven't been done in order, essentially. Like I said, there's many rules in 3D. No, there's not many rules in 3D. Very few rules, but they're all very strict. Okay, cool. So the next thing would be to bring in our UVs, or bring in our normal maps, I should say, to you know, to give it some life. However, that's where the issue can appear for newbies. So if I go to the place where I've exported everything, so you go So I've got my UVs, my normals that have been put out like this, which is all good. And I'm going to go, I'm going to import resources, I'm going to add resources, I'm going to go to that, I'm going to grab each of these, I'm going to click add, I'm going to, like that, import them in as per we usually do. And I go to my text set, and then I can add them. Okay, so cool, we've got it on the head, but okay, how do we do the body? Okay. Well, if I click on this, there's the issue. I only get the options for bringing this information in, bringing these normal maps in, when I've got the entire set selected. I can't actually go through and select, to bring in the normal map for the head UV, for the 1001 or for 1002. So I'm only able to really bring in my head normal. What about my body normals? That's an issue. But it's an easy one to fix, but it's really not well documented. What we've got to do is basically I'm going to rename the files of these. And it's really, really easy. And I'll make it a bit bigger so you can see. There we go. So I'm going to rename these as Ionian dot. And then this one's the head I've got selected. So this is going to be Ionian dot 1001 because this is for the first UDIM. Like that. And then this is my body. That's the second UDIM. This is going to be Ionian dot 1002. And then this is going to be 1003. Dot 1003. There you go. So basically what I've done is I've named everything but the it's Ionian. And then it's UDIM position. So what I'm going to do is import these again. So I'm going to grab all three of them again, bring them in. I'm going to say they're all textures as per usual. So this is all standard affair so far. Import them in. Cool. Now when we go back to search, we'll have stuff like this. Oh, I didn't put a dot after it. Oh, I've made up. I've messed up. I didn't put a dot after. Oh, what a silly boy I am. There we go. So I might as well go through and just delete some of those. Yeah, I'm just going to delete those resources. Delete those resources. There we go. So let me import them in again. So yeah, make sure you put the dot whatever. I didn't then. It made me look like a fool. Just make sure. Yep, cool. They're all got the dots. Import them in. There we go. Right. So I'm looking at my assets here, and you'll see this when you go to actually apply them. So I go to my texture set settings, I'll click on normal map, and you'll see this one with a 3 in it. It's basically saying there's 3 UDIMs assigned to this. What it's done is, because it's read the name, and then it's read 0.1001, 0.1002. So because it's got a prefix that's all the same name, and then the suffix is its UDIM position, it knows, okay, all these are together. So basically, I'm going to collate them all as one kind of like selectable group, and when they get applied, they get applied over the entire surface instead. And you can see there, all over the entire surface. And then, changing the settings of this, because obviously they're the wrong way around, is same as always. There we go. Boom. And that's applying multiple normal maps, multiple whatever's you've baked, all the things you've baked out. When we're actually in here, it doesn't matter. But when it's when we're baking from external sources. So I baked up my normal maps from ZBrush. All I've done is gone through and found those bakes, those normal bakes, and then just named them whatever it is, dot, and then it's UDIM position. So 1001, and you go through. So you'll see literally this will tell you what the suffix needs to be. And it took me ages to figure that out, and like I said, there's not really great documentation about it, but it's all good. Nice. There we go. So just to reiterate that again, so when you're baking out, when you're using things that have got multiple UDIMs across any project, environmental, prop, character, whatever, and we use this because obviously this guy is one big solid mass. I can't have multiple different materials per different body set when I'm texturing, so I need to bring them all into the same texture set. So what I do is I make sure I combine everything together, but make sure that inside Maya I have all the UV sets separate like this, that I'm going to lay them out. Going from obviously 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3 of the first layer, and then when I export that, that'll come into Substance like this. And then I'll have all that material is going to be 0.0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 1, 0, 0, 3. My dyscalculus proper clicking in there, and we've gone blurry. There we go. And it'll lay it out like that. Now, if you've got multiple things, so if I had clothing props with this guy, obviously I go through the exact same thing again for the other stuff. So if I've just got like a prop that's in one UV sheet, inside Maya I'll just make sure that that's got its material assigned to it. The material thing is still a thing. Just because we're using UDIMs now doesn't mean that's a different thing. Because I would have one texture set for this material, which has multiple UDIMs. And then I would have another texture set here, which has only got one UDIM in it, because it's only my whole prop's in one texture sheet. And then I might have another one, my clothing, for instance. I'll assign a whole different material to that. And then I'll have that across multiple UDIMs. And then when I bring that in, that I might have however many UDIMs I've got. So you then just work exactly like you would do through texture. It's just that you're working with multiple UDIMs. And in fact, you don't really interact with these at all. You can go through and set the texture set per one. So that's what I was a bit in my brain. I couldn't actually remember if I could do that, but you can. So per texture set, like we were saying before, like I was saying before, you know, in this case the body, the legs, they might be 2K texture. The head would need to be a 1K texture because it's double the size of the arms and legs, so it needs to be half the size of the texture. So I would keep like my UDIM 1 as 1K, and then I go through and change my body and arms to 2K. So now I'm getting the same resolution across both sets, and you can see there the information kind of become very clearer. In fact, if I knock my body down to like 1K, for instance, like not even 1K, to 128, I'm losing all my information. So I put it up to 2K, get all my information. So if I was doing my body at 4K, I would do my head at 2K. So again, same level of information. There's no kind of like crazy pixel separations between the two. Because what we don't want to do is have, I wonder if it would be noticeable with that. It's not super noticeable in the normal map, but guaranteed, oh I can actually see it a little bit, guaranteed in the color map you would see it. And what I'm seeing here right across there is I'm seeing that separation between like right there to right there. You can kind of see it. This is nice and high K. This is 4K texture off a head which is taking up a lot of space. This is 4K texture on a surface which is not taking as much space up. But if I lower both the head to 2K, you lose that. Now they become the same kind of pixel sharing. So long explanation of something that, you know, in practice takes 5 seconds to do. You know, you've set your UDIMs up just to make sure everything's set up properly. All one UDIM set like this is one material. It's not 3 materials, it's one material. And then when you bring it in, you just make sure you have you use multiple tiles. You have that setting set up in the beginning. So use UV tile workflow and then preserve UV tiles. Make sure that's clicked, because if not, you're going to have a bad time. In fact, I'll show you what it does. It comes in like this. And it might look great and stuff, but as you can see, it's not great. Because I can't texture on these other 2 UDIMs. Can't texture there. I can only texture on my head, but as you can see on the body and the legs, it's actually getting the same, you know, something's happening. And that's because we're only, without the multiple UDIM setup clicked, we're only really texturing on this UDIM here, on this space. And this just gets copied over to the other spaces. And because those are obviously different UV layouts, it doesn't work. So that's why you need to have if you're using multiple UDIMs, use UV tiles, workflow, preserve UV tiles. And it's like that, dead easy. And then when you make your maps, when you've got your bakes done, all you've got to do is, where's Ionian? There you go. Name them whatever it is, dot, whatever the UDIM position is. So in this case, Ionian 1001, 1002, 1003. Because then when you bring in these bakes, you import these bakes in, it'll know, okay, this goes into this bit, this bit, this bit. Dead simple, right. So I'm going to end that video there, because that's as simple as it needs to be. Cool, see you in the next one.